Hi everyone, it's Sean from Pulse again. We've got John Forwood from the Lowell Resources Trust here with us this morning, which was one of the most successful LICs in the last calendar year. It's been performing very well. We've noticed its share price go up to a high of $2. Well done, John. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah, look, we've had a good run. We've had some great performance out of some of the stocks in our portfolio, and you know, the commodity story is giving us a really good tailwind as well.
That's awesome. We've been following you for quite some time now, so it's really pleasing to see the continued success. It's not just a one-off. The last couple of years, you've performed exceptionally well. That I've been following it. As we discussed last time, 80% plus returns is just phenomenal. But what we're talking about today is we're looking at gold at the moment in portfolios and where we can place ourselves this year. And we know that you've got a position in gold, and we'd like to discuss that with you today. Your macro view from a top-down perspective. Can you tell us what's happening in the gold sector?
Sure, Sean. Oh, look, thanks for having me on again. Great to chat again. We've been doing it pretty regularly, so really appreciate your support and involvement with the fund. So yeah, look, the gold market, you know, we're here in January, mid-January 2022. Gold price has been stronger. It was up a couple of percent in December last month. But over the year 2021, it was actually down from the high sort of 1800s, finished about $18.20 an ounce on the 31st of December, and that's sort of where it is today, as at mid-January. So look, you know, it's been a bit soft the last 12 months, the gold price, but look, it's a very handsome price in anyone's terms. You know, in Australian dollar terms, it's, you know, around $2,500 an ounce. US dollars, you know, $1,800 an ounce. Any decent gold producer is making good money at the moment. You know, their margins, you know, in Australia, I think the average all-in sustaining cost is somewhere in the mid, you know, $1,000 per ounce. So a lot of producers are making, you know, $1,000 an ounce, you know, after all their costs. So we're seeing an uptick as a result of that. We're seeing an uptick in M&A activity. Perhaps the most recent one here in Australia was a company called Emerald Resources with a new project, a new gold operation up in Cambodia, making a play for a unlisted gold company in Western Australia with some relatively small resources and a small operation, company called Bullseye. But if you do the numbers on that takeover, you know, they're paying $500 an ounce of resources in the ground, which is a pretty nice price if you're selling gold for that, which is you know, don't even have to dig it up or process it or do anything. So look, the gold market, both on the equity side, is pretty healthy, and we're also expecting to see further price increases on in the actual metal as well.
Okay, great. One of the things, because we've looked at your reports and your updates, and I've seen it in quite a few other places, is inflation. We've followed your chart packs with slides discussing money supply and the price of gold. You've just mentioned gold's gone from the high 1800s to the low 1800s over last year, which isn't really a significant fall by anyone's means. But do you think with inflation rising, gold could keep getting suppressed, or do you think we're on the verge of a potential gold run?
Yeah, look, that's a great question, Sean. You know, just turning firstly to inflation, you know, we've been saying for a while that, you know, we thought it was much more than quote unquote transitory, as Jerome Powell was saying for quite some time last year, and now he's also changed his tune. So we think there's, you know, high likelihood that inflation is with us for some time to come, and it may even become entrenched. Then you look at what's happening with the interest rate cycle, and the Fed has, you know, started to use stronger language. The US Federal Reserve started to use stronger language in terms of where it's going to go with raising interest rates. But look, I think most analysts are saying, well, look, there could be 4 interest rate rises this year out of the US, and that, ooh, that sounds scary. But look, inflation in the US is running at 7%. And if there's 4 interest rate rises, each of 0.25% each, that gets you to a nominal interest rate of 1%. So still a big gap between inflation and nominal interest.
That's a huge gap, isn't it?
That is a huge gap. So
it doesn't really attract me 1% to take my money out of equities and put them in money in the bank. It's no appeal to me there whatsoever.
Absolutely. So look, we're all nervous about what interest rate rises are going to do to equities. But look, that's still a huge gap, and I think we're still going to see. So real interest rates are trading, around 0.7%, negative 0.7% at the moment, and I think there's very little chance of significant rises, meaningful rises in real interest rates over the next, medium term. So, and then, the reason we talk about real interest rates is there has been quite a strong correlation between the US dollar gold price and US dollar real interest rates. And when I should say a strong negative correlation. So the lower interest rates are, the higher the gold price is. So look, just on that basis, we're positive on gold.
With the Wealth Fund performing so well and your outlook on gold, what percentage of your portfolio is allocated to gold at the moment?
Yeah, look, we are around, it was pretty much spot on 50% of our portfolio into gold stocks, which are primarily focused on gold, and we've had that roughly 50% level of our portfolio for quite some time now.
That's excellent. What kind of stocks are they? Are they producers, explorers, others? What do you look for?
Yeah, look, we're really looking for stocks with multi-bagger upside, the mythical 10 bagger. So well,
that's how you get the 80% returns, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's right. You've got to, obviously not all our picks will give us that result, but we're looking for some in our portfolio every year to give us that big uptick. So most of the stocks that we see having the potential to have that huge upside are the riskier stocks. You've got to take a bit more risk, which means you're back down the curve in terms of the project stage. So we're largely invested in companies which have gold resources. They've got known gold ounces in the ground, but they haven't yet got to the stage of developing them. And we're investing on the basis that we see those deposits having a really big potential to grow substantially. So there's still, you've got the downside somewhat limited by the resources, the known resources, but you've got the upside provided by the exploration potential.
Okay, I know you might want to keep this private because this is your IP, but have you got any stocks that you're really interested in at the moment in the gold sector?
Yeah, look, we've got, we like all our stocks, and we're in some stocks which are got some reasonable market caps. The largest one in the portfolio is DeGrey, which is sitting on an initial resource of 9 million ounces in the Pilbara, and we see that as having great potential to grow well north of 10 and possibly push towards 20 million ounces, which is an enormous deposit. But one of the ones I thought I might mention this morning is a company that's put out a fantastic result since Christmas in early January, in perhaps a bit of a forgotten part of Australia for gold exploration, and that's a company called PacGold, PGO. It's listed on the ASX We've made 4 times our money.
Wow.
And that we were invested pre-IPO. It listed last year at 20 cents, and it's now trading at 85 cents on the back of some great gold drilling results. They're just inland from Cooktown in far north Queensland. Well, I say just inland. They're several hundred kilometres inland, and onto what looks like a new gold belt. It was mined in the past, but very shallowly. But they've defined a really large potential gold system up there, and yeah, it looks like there's a lot of growth in that company.
We've noticed in Australia, mining traditionally has been in the West. You've just mentioned Queensland. Are there any other areas that you think you're on the hunt for at the moment, or you can see potential other goldfields emerging?
Yeah, look, we're obviously seeing a resurgence of interest here in Victoria. Good old Victoria, which once was the many years ago the heartland of the Australian gold industry. It's had a bit of a bad name for gold for a few reasons, geological and maybe other land access reasons. But it's really been turned around by, we've got to take our hats off to the Canadians that at Kirkland Lake Gold. They made a fantastic discovery deep underground at the existing Fosterville mine, which is just outside Bendigo. One of the, if not the richest gold mine in the world now, due to that.
On your doorstep.
On the doorstep, super high grade bonanza discovery. And that's really created a resurgence of interest in Victorian gold. And there's a lot more money being spent in the drilling here in Victoria now, and we're got a nice little exposure through a company called Mawson Gold, which is actually another Canadian company, but run by a guy I went to uni with here in Australia, and they're doing this interesting spin out called Southern Cross Gold, which we've also made an investment in at the seed stage. We're hoping to see an IPO there, and they've got a great ground position in central Victoria, and having some really good drilling success with some high grade intersections, gold intersections, just coming out recently.
It certainly looks promising. But one thing I have to ask, John, is that it has been mentioned to me several times, because we have been working together, letting my investors and other people know how you've been performing. With the growth of the fund, you've gone from 50 cents to $2, which equates to quite a substantial change in market cap. Could you take more money into the portfolio, or are you limited with working in the smaller resource sector of the market? Are you sort of limited to what you can take, or is there room for some additional funds to come in if people were so inclined to look at it?
Yeah, look, we definitely do focus on the smaller end of the market, but just on that, there was 106, I think is the number, 106 new resources listings in 2021. That's just on the ASX. So that's taken it from about 700 to well over 800 resources companies, most of which are juniors with market caps probably sub 50 million. And then that's we also invest in offshore as well. We've got a number of stocks listed in Canada, and one or two in London. So the market is definitely big enough for us to deploy more money. Generally, we like to, as we're investing largely in ASX stocks, we like to stay under 5%, which means we can stay under the radar and make our exit fairly easy. But the weighted, the average market cap of the companies we're invested in our portfolio at the moment is about $80 million, and the weighted average is about 200 million. So, if we were to put 5% into, some of those companies with a weighted average market cap of 200 million, that'd be 10 million a pop, and we, with $60 million at the moment under management, that'd only be 6 stocks. So yeah, look, we've
You've got a lot of room to grow. In other words,
we've got plenty of room to grow. There's no, and look, Sean, there's a number of companies there where we've got a modest amount of money invested, and we'd love to deploy some more and
top up,
help them grow their companies. Yeah.
Well, what I'd implore people to do is if they are interested in the well, is to get in contact with myself or John. Our contact details are readily available on the internet, on this email, and just keep in contact if you are interested, please. So, yeah, John, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate taking your time out of your busy schedule, and look forward to speaking with you soon.
Great, Sean. I'll get back to the beach.
Enjoy it, mate.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. It's Sean Sandilands from Pulse Markets. I've got Dr. Quinton Henney, world-renowned geologist, with me today. Thanks for your time, Quinton. How are you?
Very good. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
We've been following your progress over the years, and I really appreciate you coming in to talk. You've been responsible for some huge discoveries out there, especially in Australia. And what I'd like to do is just ask you a few questions about that today. And yeah, just let our investors and your investors know how you came about this. And one key discovery is Fosterville, which is one of the world's highest underground gold mines and a global top 6 producer, just a short drive from Melbourne. I've been out there just before Christmas and can't believe how close it is to a capital city. Can you let us know how you came to explore Fosterville? Because, I mean, it's just wonderful.
It's an interesting story. It started in 2016. I was working in Perth. For Novo, I travel back and forth in the train every morning, and I was on my commute into the office, and Eric Sprott gave me a ring. Eric, I help occasionally, and he gave me a ring, and he said, "There's this mine in Victoria Victoria State that could, I'm interested in. They're hitting some high grade. Could you go have a look?" And I said, "Sure, no problem." Actually hopped on a plane to Melbourne within a day or two, I think. Now, when he called me, I knew what he was talking about. I knew it was going to be Fosterville because they had several news releases, maybe 3 or 4 news releases with some high grade results. And it was truly anomalous for that mine. That mine had a long history of producing gold at, 4 or 5 grams per ton. And all of a sudden they started hitting, double and triple digit gold numbers. Eric, being Eric, he loves high grade. He recognizes the value of high grade to a mining operation.
Sure.
And he wanted to have a look at this thing, too sweet. So I went over to Melbourne. Okay,
that's fantastic. What do you think he saw and you saw that no one else was seeing?
Well, Eric looks at things, from an accounting standpoint, like looking at the margin that high-grade rock like this.
That's about the grade.
Absolutely. For Eric, it's all about the grade. But what he didn't really have at that time was a picture of the geology. Was this just a one-off, small anomaly within this bigger deposit, which, typically was lower grade? So when I got over there, to be frank, I was actually prepared to be very disappointed. I thought maybe this is just a small high-grade pod within a bigger system. I mean, that can happen. But when I got there and they had opened up some of these high-grade stopes and I was able to actually see this mineralization close up, it became clear right away that they were at the very tippy top of a very high-grade system that was probably much larger. It's something we call an epizonal gold system. It's basically a high-level, what is termed orogenic gold system. So epizonal orogenic gold system. And, 99% of the time, Mother Nature erodes these things away. They tend to form, within the first, say, 2 or 3 kilometers of the crust. And these deposits usually form during a process of uplifting. So as mountains are uplifted and they get eroded away, these kind of deposits often get, eroded away too. They get lost. But here we were. I got to see firsthand, the emergence of the very top of one of these exceptionally high grade deposits. I was so excited. I wrote a report for Eric the next day. I mean, I couldn't wait to write up this report. And I said, Eric, this thing they're just getting into the high grade. This thing has a lot of runway, that's wide open down to depth. And this thing is going to be bigger than Ben-Hur. So he bought out the position of, I think it was Luxor Capital, who had a very large stake in Newmarket at that time. They were looking to sell their block. Eric bought with both fists. I think he bought the remaining shares that they had, and in effect, through that became the largest shareholder of Newmarket.
Wow, that's really exciting. Epizonal, you were just talking about that. That's the same as Costerfield, which is in that Victorian Renaissance period or area, sorry. Do you think Epizonal Gold is limited to just Fosterville and Costerfield, or could there be similar high-grade finds in other nearby locations as well?
Certainly. Look, if you look at Victoria as a whole, quite a few gold deposits, low gold deposits across the goldfield, and you can see that many of those are a bit deeper level. For example, the deposits around Bendigo and Ballarat display higher temperature textures and quartz and so forth. I won't get into the weeds here. I promise you, I won't get too technical. But basically, you see, and then in coarser gold, you see evidence that they formed at a deeper level. Okay, Fosterville, hands down, the gold's very fine grain, believe it or not. Even though it's high grade, typically the gold particles are very fine, and a lot of the textures of the veins look almost like something you'd see in a hot spring or something. It's very, very interesting to see such vein types in such a gold field. I guess my argument would be that there's going to be regimes within the Victorian goldfields in which Mother Nature has just barely cut down, and you have these epizonal deposits preserved. Other places you'll be in deeper parts of the system. It's not to say Bendigos or Ballarats or whatever are bad deposits. They're not. They produce millions of ounces of gold. But these certain, very, think of it as a tippy top of a very high grade system. These things can deliver. And, Fosterville is an example. Yes, Costerfield is also an example. A little bit different structures. Okay, they tend to be tighter and, a little bit more jigsaw, like brittle or jigsaw, like they kind of go every which way. But it is the same, more or less the same type of system. Yes. And I think there will be plenty more. I would say the eastern side of the Bendigo Zone, and then eastward from there, I would say that's the sweet spot within the Victorian goldfields.
That's good to hear. There's quite a few companies listed on the Canadian Stock Exchange that are investing in these epizonal fields in Victoria. Kirkland Lake, Mandalay, E79, and also Mawson Gold, which we're involved with. Why do you think Canadians have looked to this area when Australians really haven't?
Look, I think a lot of it is on the back of the success of Kirkland. There's no question. I mean, the story around Kirkland Lake and Fosterville has made a lot of money in Canada, and people are looking around thinking, hey, can this be done again? And, I've talked about it. Eric's talked about it. Other people have talked about the fact that there is potential for finding further discoveries like this in certain parts of the Victorian goldfield. So I think in Canada, it's just one of these weird situations where, the Canadian market sees something that maybe, for whatever reason was missed in Australia, but it's a good story. And I think that there are more of these deposits out there, and that the money that's going into these companies is very important to make more discoveries. I have little doubt that there's going to be more Fosterville type discoveries made. I also think through the work that's being done right now, we're starting to understand these systems a little bit more. There's more to these than just pure vertical zonation and where the sweet spots are. It appears that maybe relations with granitic intrusions might be important, and other factors. Okay, so I like to see this work. I think it's very fundamental. Seeing the money come in ensures that these companies can explore some of these targets and, hopefully lead to further Fosterville discoveries.
Well, we're certainly hoping so. We're working with Southern Cross at the moment, and they're certainly in that area getting some good results. One thing which leads me to this question with that in mind is, in a recent interview, you said that statistically speaking, when you start to see drill projects that are hitting 100 gram metre holes or above, those systems tend to deliver an economic discovery. Can you just elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of drilling for gold around the planet, okay? And we have a lot of data, lots of databases that show, what is typically expected for gold deposits, okay? And when you start to see narrow intercepts, but that are tens or hundreds of grams, in other words, when you do the math and multiply the length of the intercept times the grade of the intercept, and you start to see 100 or hundreds of gram meter holes in a deposit, those are the exceptional ones, okay? Most gold deposits, deliver a few, maybe 100+ gram meter holes, and the rest of them are, a lot of the other holes in the system might be a few tens of grams of meters or something. Okay, when you start to see a deposit, deliver values, basically intercepts that are at the, in the upper 10 percentile, say, you got to sit up and take note. And that goes for any deposit around the world. Okay, I'm helping. I'm a director of NewFound Gold, for example, in Newfoundland, near Gander, Newfoundland, and it's the same story. I mean, it's truly a case. For me, it's very fortunate. Like lightning strikes twice. I looked at NewFound. I looked at NewFound the first time in January of 2020, right before COVID struck. I was able to go to site, but I remember looking at the first core photos from the project. The first hole hit 19 meters of 93 grams. I looked at the core photo and I thought, my goodness, this thing looks exactly like Fosterville. Very similar gold, very similar quartz textures and so forth. And I said, I think you guys have another Epizonal gold system. And it is panning out. I mean, the deposit just delivers hole after hole after hole of hundreds of gram meters. It's incredible. Awesome. Same with Fosterville. I mean, I watched the drilling, especially when they got down into the Swan Zone around, what was it, latter half of 2017, I think. And there were intercepts in there of, thousands of gram meters pretty consistently in places. That is just unheard of, okay?
You think you've got another one?
Absolutely. I think NewFound's onto one. And I do think that, as geologists, we're getting smarter, and I think people are starting to identify other areas around the world. I wouldn't be surprised to see a few other goldfields produce discoveries of this type, this epizonal type. Yeah.
Clive, thank you. Closer to your home, you're in Colorado at a geographical and technical director of Crescat Capital, who are a global asset management firm. Do you want to let us know a little bit more about yourself and what you do there?
Yeah, certainly. Look, COVID has been a struggle for many people, but for me personally, I've made some pretty drastic changes here. I was director and even executive of mining companies up until about a year ago, and as COVID,
big names too, like previously Newcrest, Newmont, like you've got a pretty extensive history.
Yes, that was early in my career. I worked for Homestake, Newcrest, and Newmont. So I worked for major mining companies for the first half of my career, and since then I've been working in the junior spectrum. Really, it's and it's been a pleasure. But COVID, reduced my travel. I can't travel to Australia or Japan or Peru or wherever that I was working previously. So I've actually found a new niche or new occupation, and that is working with a fund here in Denver called Crescat Capital. And I'm overseeing the precious metal investments. Okay, we have 3 funds, one of which is the precious metal fund. And, it's an absolute delight because a lot of capital's flowed in, and I've been able to allocate that to companies who have now made discoveries. So it's kind of like doing what I was doing previously, but on steroids. Helping.
You've got the checkbook.
I got a checkbook, and I'm helping tens of companies instead of, less than 10 companies, say. So it's a delight. It's been very pleasant to make this shift. Oh,
that sounds fantastic. Now, one thing that we've seen with high inflation in the States, and I think it's happening everywhere, with supply chain issues and low interest rates, and also the availability of money for people with these low interest rates. What are you expecting from gold in the next 12 months with the pricing of the commodity?
You know, everybody was hating gold at the end of 2021. Usually that's a good sign you're at a bottom. And everybody was also, you know, giving reasons why gold is dead and it's not going to do anything. 2022 is going to be a disaster for gold. That's not our mindset. Okay, at Crescat here, we are of the view that we're in a commodity boom, of which gold is going to benefit as well.
Yeah.
We take a very strong view that inflation is not going to be transitory, that it's going to be here, you know, for a long time, probably a decade or so. Okay, look at this 1970s. Now, first of all, you know, people say, well, geez, you know, do you expect inflation to just keep going up? No, that's not necessarily what we're saying. We think that there will be a bit of a roller coaster with inflation over the next few years, much like we saw in the 1970s. But in general, we are in an inflationary time, whether it's deliberate or not is up for debate. But I think you're starting to see people wake up to the fact that commodities and now gold are going to be a place to be. And, you know, look, gold's fundamental. It's got intrinsic value. It's tangible. It's, you know, it sets itself apart from other things like Bitcoin and stuff.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm definitely a fan over cryptos. It is tangible, I believe.
Look, I'm sure Bitcoin has its place, okay, and cryptos and whatnot. But my view, I'll take the stance that gold is, it gives you tangible, you know, physical wealth, okay, like
an asset.
Exactly, it's an asset. It is a hard asset. And as such, it's really provides insurance that you will preserve the value, you know, your power, your buying power, if you will, through this period that's coming, in this inflationary period. So I think gold's going to do well. What do I think the gold price is going to do here in the short term? I would say, you know, this year, if it gets back to its previous high, wouldn't be surprised, you know, so a bit over 2,000 US. Over the longer haul, I would say in the next 5 to 10 years, yes, it will be between $3,000 and $5,000. People say, oh, that's kind of crazy talk, you know. Well, hold on a minute. Gold in January of 2001 was $252 or something like it. It touched its low.
Yes.
Okay. In the subsequent 10 years, September
10 times.
Yeah, you see, exactly. September of 2011, I believe it touched a little over 1,900 an ounce. Okay, that's like a 7 or 8 fold increase in the price in what, a 10-year period. So when people say, oh, gold can't go up to, you know, 3,000 to 5,000, yes, it can. Yes, it can. In fact, you know, if anything, I think I'm being a bit conservative. So,
okay, great. Just I'd really appreciate your time, because I know you are at the forefront in the, as you've said, in the smaller cap resource space. We're running a transaction at the moment in Southern Cross. I know you've worked with Mike Hudson, the MD of that. Have you got any comments on Southern Cross and where it's situated near Fosterville and Costerfield?
Certainly, it is within that sweet zone. Okay, that sweet spot, that corridor in which, you know, Mother Nature has kind of eroded things down very gently to a point where one would expect to find these high-grade systems. And, you know, what's more is you do see that direct granitic or intrusive link to the system that Mike and his team are exploring. Okay, I actually think that's very important. I'm taking the view more and more that these granites that kind of stick their nose up in this whole gold cycle, gold forming cycle in the Victorian goldfields can be quite important. So I think these guys have a very good shot at finding a nice, beefy, high grade system. I also have a lot of, strong view about Mike and his team. Mike's a very seasoned explorer, very successful. He's also got that experience, you know, on both sides of the ocean. He's been involved with Canadian listed companies as well as Australian listed companies, and that's pretty rare in this in the market. So I think it's a fantastic story.
Well, we'll certainly keep you updated with what happens, and we'd love to have you back. It's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, Quinton.
Thank you, Sean.
Hi everyone, it's Sean from Pulse again. I've got Mike Hudson, the MD of Southern Cross Gold, which is listing on the ASX. He's also the chairman of Mawson Gold, which is on the TSX, which has a fabulous deposit in Finland, and will own a portion of the Southern Cross shares. Mike, how are you this morning?
I'm great, Sean. Good to be back with you. Thanks for having me again.
Mate, I'd love to see you got the Southern Cross hat on. You're in the sheds at Nagambie, where I went before Christmas, so you're hard at work, which is what us shareholders like to see. And, mate, you're never stopping.
There's a lot on. There's a lot on. And, you know, running one of these companies, you've got to be intimately understanding of every piece of data. I'm a geologist and I love getting to the core, but we've got bigger things to talk about, what that core's led to.
We just spoke with Quinton Henny in regards to Victorian, the Epizonal fields that you have, and he spoke very favourably, very highly. He obviously discovered, or helped discover Fosterville. Southern Cross is at one of the companies in this potential field, and it's the high-end discovery of the Epizonal fields in Central Victoria. Can you just let us know a little bit more about your tenements and how your drilling program has been going leading up into the IPO?
Sure. So it's a key point in that Victoria is a supersonic gold field, 80 million ounces, but the majority of ounces came out of fields like Bendigo and Ballarat, which is not what we're looking for. You mentioned Fosterville there, and that's put Victoria on the map big time. It's the highest grade gold mine on earth. That it geologically is a separate style of mineralization, 60 million years later than what Victoria has traditionally been known for. So we're looking for that style, which you referred to as epizonal. That's the correct term. So we've got 3 historic fields that we're looking at, 3 historic epizonal fields. And the amazing thing is here in Victoria that really nobody has looked pre-World War I. And certainly Victoria was difficult to explore for a number of years. The difficulty in the Ballarat and Bendigo styles, which are nuggety and very hard to put together in modern resources, turned people away. And we've all been a bit slow looking for these epizonal deposits, trying to find the highest, or a repeat of the highest grade gold mine on earth, which is Fosterville, and also Costerfield, which sits in this field. It's the 6th highest grade gold mine on earth. So we've got 3 of the 9 historic fields that are this style, and it's relatively low hanging fruit. We're drilling under old mines that have never been looked at since they were mined in the 1800s.
Well, I think it's prudent to say that in the 1800s, they could drill down, or they could mine down to 60 metres where the water table is, and that's where they had to stop. So you're exploring below that, where there was very high grade above that, and you're going down deeper and getting good results, aren't you?
If it was in Western Australia, it would be Swiss cheese, and it would be completely drilled out. But this is the opportunity, that understanding the science, and that we're looking at a very different orogenic event, understanding that the history and why these things haven't been explored, and then becoming smart about understanding the controls on gold. And of course, it doesn't always work, but sometimes it works very well. And that's what at least doing in one of our 3 projects today.
Okay, you're the chairman of Mawson Gold, which is listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and Southern Cross is being spun out of that listing on the ASX. Why were these assets, which are in Australia, on the TSX?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur, and I love finding things, and I reside here in Victoria, but the last 20 years I've been working in the Canadian markets. I saw all this capital from Canada coming to Australia to recapitalise the business here. It wasn't going to come from Western Australia naturally by the biases that we have here in Australia. So the Canadians were investing big time, making discoveries like Fosterville, like Costerfield. And I actually had some of these projects back 17 or 18 years ago when it was way too early to demonstrate the opportunity here. So I knew the projects, and spoke to shareholders simply in Mawson and said, what should we do? We're not going to pivot from our Finnish asset, but let's try and build these up under Mawson, was the idea. And that we've done. We've spent $5 million over the last year or so, and made discoveries. And then when the time was right, which is now, let's spin them out and create additional value for Mawson shareholders.
So it was the Fostervilles and the Costerfields that drew you back to Melbourne, your hometown?
Yeah, it was seemed crazy getting on a plane, traveling for 24 hours to go and find gold when it was being found an hour away from my home base.
That must be really great, not having to be away all the time from the family.
It makes it simpler.
Yeah, it sure would. Anyway, what drill results have we seen so far across Southern Cross tenements?
Well, we've drilled the 3 projects that we have that I've talked about. The key project where we put most holes in is called Sunday Creek, and most of your listeners will know that. There's been some spectacular results come out just pre-Christmas. We put out results like 3 meters at 41 grams, which was in a larger zone of about 11 to 12 meters at 12 grams. That was 400 meters away from a hole we put out prior to that, just in late October, 20 plus meters at 5 grams. These are all at depth. So we've got very good high grades with broader, moderate grades at surface. And now we're stepping out down at depth, down to 300 to 400 meters. And we're seeing the grades improve, and we're seeing them, that we see that they're consistent. So, and that's over, 800 meters of strike, but, notwithstanding this system continues for 10 kilometers at least, and looks like it's got multiple zones. So we're going to be busy.
Well, obviously, you're a very good geologist as well with the discoveries that you've made in Finland and other geographic locations, Peru and whatnot. With the geology of Sunday Creek, for example, and your other tenements, how does that compare to the world-class mines of Fosterville and Costerfield?
Well, it's like we talked about before. You've got to look at this later orogenic event, which is where these epizonal systems fall. So this is squarely identical geologically in terms of formation time and manner to Fosterville and Costerfield. There's nuances around any geological deposit that will make them slightly different, but at the very big and coming down to the detailed picture, the analogues are there. So what we can see at Fosterville is that it was a refractory deposit at 5 grams until they found the Cinderella zone down at about 700 meters. The grades improved at depth as they kept on drilling. And guess what? Our grades, which have been pretty nice at surface, and certainly very high grades, because the old timers had to have high grades to be mining it in those days. The grades that we see are improving at depth, the system's expanding. So the same game book is playing out here, it would seem, and that's the opportunity.
Great. That's really, really interesting. Last time we spoke, you were in the sheds as well, and you gave us a tour of some of the core samples that had some exceptional results. Are they the same core samples behind you now? Because I can see the trays that are sitting there. Or have you got new holes that have come in?
A good question, and putting me literally on the spot. So what we've got is a number of drill holes coming to the table. So behind me is hole 25 from Sunday Creek, which we spoke about last time, which was that 3 meters at 41 grams down at depth. But we've drilled about 100 meters away from that, and hole 26 is the next hole that sits behind me. Assay results are awaited, but we're excited about what we're seeing there. This is the deepest hole on the property, down closer to 500 meters depth. So that will be another point of information, and you'll see those results come to the table soon. Then also behind me, which is a little bit back further, we've got 2 holes at Whroo, which is one of our other projects. It's about 60 or 70 kilometers from where I sit here in the shed. And it's never seen a drill hole at depth, despite it being one of the major producers from one of these epizonal fields back in the 1800s. Again, I was there yesterday, and it was one of the key gold fields in that district. And literally the only hole that went into it was when I was 5. I'm 53 now, and that was just down at 100 meters. So that it's just the Victorian opportunity again. So we've got Whroo holes coming to the table in the next month or so, and that will be very interesting, to see what we get there, because having one project is great, having more is even better, where we're drilling gold.
Okay, great. One thing I think I really enjoyed when I came to see you just before Christmas, and we went to the site and we had a look around, was those tray tables with the core samples. Do you reckon we could have a quick look at those quickly now, please? Seeing is believing, as they like to say.
Okay, so this is This is hole 26. So you see what we've got here is the core is halved. Half of it goes to assay, half of it stays in the core tray. Let me just go around here. This is a full length of core. So this is when it's round and comes out of the ground. It's called diamond core because we have a diamond bit, not that we're looking for diamonds, which confuses some people sometimes. Yep. And then we halve the core and half of it goes to assay. So what we've got here is hole 26. You can see that it's been halved, so it's gone to assay, and we're pretty excited about seeing what we've got coming to the table there. So that's hole 26, and then you can see in the background all the core that has come from Redcastle where we've drilled, and there's a lot more work to be done there. That's a mine lease extensions essentially of Costerfield. We've got our Whroo holes just stacked here in front of us that are sitting in the lab now. That half core is sitting in the lab for the assays. And then over here, we've got hole 27, which is the next hole that has been collared at Sunday Creek, which is drilling now and won't stop. So that's a key point. During the IPO process, you know, we've raised capital now to continue the work, and there'll be news flow through the IPO until we lodge our prospectus, and we can't put any more information out until we go public, but there'll be a bank load of data coming to the table then. So lots of activity.
So you've got a couple of holes at the assay or at the laboratories now, which we could expect to see in the lead up to the IPO. And then once the IPO happens, you should have a lot of news flow coming straight away.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. That's really good to see. Now, you just mentioned you raised some money before Christmas, and it literally was the week before Christmas. We worked on it together. Do you want to just comment on how that went? Because it's quite exciting.
Yeah, so we were really wondering whether we should go pre-Christmas, you know, in that death valley where everybody's would be rather at the beach than thinking about investing. But we just got the in principle okay from the ASX to go forward in December. So we had the de-risking of that angle, and then we decided to go and raise this capital. We looked for 2 million. We bought both basically 3 million to the table and accepted 2.5. So that will give us a very good runway, pay for the IPO, pay for that drill rig to continue, and really sets us up hopefully for a successful IPO where the demand was strong already into a private vehicle, which is always a harder ask than into a public vehicle, of course.
Well, that in a gold market, which wasn't that exciting, with Omicron there, with Christmas, I think it was the 23rd, 22nd of December, we raised the money. So not, as you said, the most exciting time to be raising for people that are more interested in having eggnog than writing out a check. You got 50% oversubscription.
Yeah, it was a great result, and I thank you for your support, Sean, and all the shareholders who believe in what we're doing here. Obviously, the results speak for themselves, I think, and now's our challenge is to continue to get to improve on those results, basically, and bring them together and put a coherent story around these projects that we're really starting to do already.
I think it was based on your history, Mike, realistically, with how successful you've been in the past. People generally back winners, and I think you're a winner, so people are continuing to do that. One thing I did see when I was down there was Nagambie. We went to the site, we had a look at that. Southern Cross owns 10% of Nagambie Resources, a nearby gold company. Is there a strategic plan in play there?
Absolutely. So we purchased Sunday Creek 100% from Nagambie originally, closer to 2 years ago. We've got 2 joint ventures with them. So they're our partners in those projects where we're earning up to 70% in both Redcastle and Whroo. But we have a right of first refusal on Nagambie's extremely large ground position. So 3,300 square kilometres. We have the first right of refusal to do a deal on any of that ground. Nagambie hold the Nagambie mine also, which is under that ROFA as well, right of first refusal. Nagambie mine is a strategically important asset that has obviously a permitted site, which is invaluable in a modern day mining, but they're also building a CIL or a gold processing plant there as we speak, which gives us optionality of finding these gold deposits and trucking them to this mine site. So holding 10% of Nagambie, the public company, and then the ROFA over their very large land position is a win-win for both companies, and we're enjoying working with each other, and our experience is exploration, and that gives us the pipeline of projects to continue building the Victorian asset base.
That's excellent. One thing about the market, I do think it's waking up to you and similar nearby companies. Over Christmas, we saw Falcon list, and then it performed a little bit sluggishly at the beginning, but then really took off. Do you think the market is really waking up to this particular epizonal fields where you're located?
The Australian market, yes. So here's an opportunity to bring it back home. So I've got this Aussie accent, but it's coming out of a Canadian company, and the Canadians have taken the running here for the most part. And Falcon is a really good example of an Aussie company exploring here. They're over 100 million market cap as we speak today, and provide a great comp. We've valued these assets at 15 million Aussie pre-money, just pre-Christmas when we were taking that money. So we believe we've got a top quartile discovery here with the results, and I urge your readers to do some basic due diligence, and they'll see that we have a top quartile discovery, but we're valuing it today at the lower quartile, which really gives us a chance to run and hopefully emulate the success of Falcon. They've done a great job.
Well, I think if you look at the valuations, Falcon around that 100 to 120, got up to 140 million market cap. You with money, with exceptional results, which you've currently gotten, hopefully more to flow. When you're listed, the EV plus money's only around 27 million. So you're looking at around a quarter of the market cap of one of your nearest comparables, which is just very compelling in itself.
Yeah, it doesn't add up completely. Let's see where we go. We've got high hopes, of course.
Great. Thanks for your time, Mike. I hope you have a good day, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Sean.